Characters, waifus, husbandos who might also be waifus, your idols, sailing ships, or sinking ships. Even if you started a gacha game because its gameplay looked cool or you were a fan of the franchise, you've likely continued playing in large part to keep rolling for new characters and to keep spending time with the ones you've grown attached to. Gacha gamers spend hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars and equally valuable amounts of their real time to obtain and gear up their favorite characters, so we can use them and spend time with them in the games. So what happens when one of your favorites is unceremoniously killed off? You write a several thousand-word video essay to cope. Part 1. The Life and Death of Tingyun. In an update where Dan Heng literally goes Moses and parts the ocean, the more memorable scene for most is going to be Tingyun's death. Even if I'm still salty about what's happened to her, I do have to recognize that her death scene was really well executed. The people at Hoyoverse knew exactly what they were doing. It was designed to be a viral, shocking moment, and the amount of screenshots and memes shared around after it happened were testament to its effect. It got people talking. You fight your way past the abominations of abundance and up to the cauldron. After defeating Dan Shu, the leaders of the disciples of Sanctus Medicus, she calls out for Fantilia to hold up her end of the bargain. The camera pans to focus on Tingyun, and one of Hoyo's expertly crafted cutscenes begins. With a newfound malice in her voice and sway to her step, Tingyun scolds Dan Shu and reveals herself to the party. The animation takes it all up a notch, and the English voice actress, Lacey Morgan, really sells it.
What a shame. It would have been nice to observe for a little longer.
It is an immediately gripping scene, and Braxophone's first reaction when he watched it on stream was fitting.
Okay, when she talks like that, she's kind of bad, though.
Then, this happens. The people who worked on this scene did a really great job, and if there's any consolation to this entire situation for the downtrodden Tingyun fan, it's that she got a chance to truly shine in a way that few other 4-stars have in this game. She started getting more fan art and attention, for good reason. But that's still just a consolation. It doesn't make up for how Tingyun's death and how Hoyoverse has handled it makes me feel. My desire to play both Star Rail and Genshin immediately dropped. I started letting my stamina cap and skipping dailies. I spent the next week obsessively searching the net for information and theories having to do with her fate, and I started writing this script on Tuesday, July 25th, just 1 week after it happened. I've never been so bothered by a character death in any piece of media before, and I want to explore that. As a former Hoyoverse fanboy, I closely followed Honkai Star Rail during closed beta testing, and I started the game on day 1, hour 1. Based on her design and kit, I was really interested in Tingyun as a character going into the game, and I was excited that the Bennett of Star Rail was going to be her, since I don't really care for Bennett's design or character, but basically have to use him in Genshin anyways.
Ow!
Tingyun was gacha only on release, and nobody was guaranteed to get her. I knew that I wanted Silverwolf more than Sela or Jingyuan, but Tingyun was on the Xianzhou General's banner, and I was prepared to go all in to make sure I got her on my account as early as possible. Luckily, I pulled her on the standard banner relatively early instead, and I was immediately charmed by her animations and voice.
Peace. Peace is above all things.
She quickly became a staple in my party and the main character I used in the overworld. The thing I was most looking forward to when we headed to the Xianzhou Luofu for the first time was meeting Tingyun. I was thrilled that she was the first character we met and that she was playing an important supporting role in the story. 4-star fans in Genshin Impact know that it sometimes takes months for their favorites to get screen time. Star Rail is the same. Pela was basically irrelevant to the plot of Belobog and only got screen time in the museum event. Obviously, Tingyun played a very important role in the Xianzhou story, as we learned that Tingyun was actually Fantilia, a Lord Ravager loyal to Nanook, the Eon of Destruction. As for the real Tingyun, well, we never even met her, confirmed by Fu Xuan. She's almost certainly dead and gone forever. And for those of you thinking that there could still be a chance, I'll address you later. First, I want to touch on the appropriateness of character death in Honkai Star Rail. Part 2. Is character death appropriate in my space comedy? In the week following Tingyun's death in 1.2, I spent some time on the internet trenches, engaging in holy flame wars as we debated her fate and whether or not it was a good decision to kill her off. A common argument I had thrown at me was that character death is good. Attack on Titan and Oshi no Ko feature character death, and they're good series. And that's true. A lot of incredible stories utilize character death to great effect. Two of my favorite anime series, Code Geass and Madoka Magica, both feature a lot of character death. Madoka Magica is expertly crafted, with each character's arc and death playing a very specific role in the plot. It's also a pretty dark show, with melancholic and foreboding tones even before the episode 3 plot twist. Code Geass has a couple of arguably pointless character deaths, but it's ultimately an epic story of war and revolution. And war is nothing but pointless death and destruction. And while the show has lighter moments, the stakes are always clear. Character death works in these stories because it is carefully included to support the plot and themes of the story. Viewers know that death is possible and expect that it could happen. While sometimes the specific time or way that a character dies is surprising, it's rarely surprising that they're dying in general. On the other hand, Honkai Star Rail is, with the exception of Tingyun's death and Yukong in general, a space comedy game. The dialogue is layered with jokes and goofy moments, even when some characters appear to be experiencing real peril. Even if her death could, in theory, support the themes of Xianzhou's war-weary population, it didn't stop us on March 7th from cheerfully reporting on our experience on the Luofu to Himiko. It just doesn't match tonally at all. Keep in mind, the last companion quest we had before the Phantilia plot twist was Locha's, where we were gifted to this bit of wonderful voice acting.
Delivery? Ah, yes, the delivery. The boss is waiting for you. I'm afraid I'll need to see some ID first.
And in the Aramali event that happens immediately after the funeral, we get this.
Woof, 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 woof.
With this kind of storytelling present in Star Rail, did you really expect that this game would start killing off playable characters? Tingyun may have been acting foxy, but that's no reason to expect that she would literally die. Oh, I'm sorry, that she was killed off screen before the game even started, meaning we never even got to meet the real character. In an otherwise lighthearted gacha game about collecting and going on fun space adventures with lovable characters, I think it's safe to say that a character being killed in this matter does not match expectations. Yeah, Madoka Magica's episode 3 plot twist was unexpected, but the show was never lighthearted or funny, and it certainly didn't have a side plot about making fun of the story that just ended in the death of a beloved character. So there's reason one, I guess, that Tingyun's death has been so upsetting to me. It completely went against the expectations I had for Star Rail. I was expecting and enjoying a fun space adventure. The tragic and off-screen death of my favorite character is not what I expect or want to happen in my fun space adventure. If the game was going to enter a dark and serious tone like Madoka Magica did, okay, but it doesn't. We're right back to goofy dialogue and lighthearted events immediately following both the 1.2 Trailblaze mission and the 1.3 Funeral quest. Part 3. Gacha Brain amplifies gacha pain. Most of the other reasons that Tingyun's death is more bothersome to me than others have to do with the fact that Honkai Star Rail is a gacha game. Given that the lovable characters are a primary appeal of every gacha game, doing them dirty like this irks me. If you're a Genshin veteran like I am, you know that Hoyo likes to revisit old areas with new stories and events. During these events, we can expect to meet our old friends again. I always look forward to learning more about these characters and seeing my favorites get more screen time. In Genshin, the annual Lantern Rite always brings Liyue characters back into the spotlight. Because the event is different each year, we see the characters in new situations, celebrating a different facet of the holiday with different groups of people. It's rewarding to explore the harbor just to find and talk to all your different friends and see what they're doing this year. In summer 2022, Genshin released patch 2.8, Summer Fantasia. The Golden Apple Archipelago made its triumphant return, with the 4 islands tailored to fit 4 different characters we would be spending more time with: Kazuha, Jinyan, Mona, and Fischl. The quests used the exploration of these islands and the domains within them to dive into the background and psychology of these characters. It made Kazuha and Jinyan a lot more endearing to me, and as someone who already really liked both Mona and Fischl, it was an absolute treat to see them shine like that. I know that Honkai Star Rail is a different game, but it's almost identical to Genshin in terms of system, story, and event structure. They occupy the same headspace for me, and I'm guessing most crossover players. I don't think I'm wrong to expect that we will get content like this going forward. Hoyo doesn't have to announce it for me to know that they're going to do a Lunar New Year's event on the Xianzhou Luofu. It's just what they do. Unfortunately, Tingyun's death means that she won't be a part of it. We won't get to see her celebrating the holiday with her Xianzhou friends. We won't get to see her in any other story updates or side quests. She will never get a companion quest where we get to know her better, and we'll never get to invite her onto the Express. It's not like other media where a character dies and you don't get to see them again because that's just part of the self-contained story. Hoyo expects us to play this game for 6+ years. When Tingyun died, we lost out on ever seeing her in any more future content. And we're not just missing out on future Tingyun content either. We never even got to meet the real Tingyun in the first place. As I mentioned before, we now know thanks to Fu Xuan that the Tingyun we first met aboard the Xianzhou Luofu was in fact Fantilia from the start. In an unvoiced dialogue line, she says, "I can only declare for certain that the Tingyun you saw after you boarded the Xianzhou was impersonated by Fantilia." So the real Tingyun was killed and replaced sometime while she was off the Luofu, which is what enabled Fantilia to sneak the Stellaron in. As a Tingyun fan, this is seriously depressing to me. Story content is another area for characters to appeal and endear themselves to a player. As someone who is more story than gameplay driven, how characters appear and behave in the game's story is hugely important to how I perceive and feel about them. When Kokomi first appeared in one of Inazuma's trailers, I loved her design and was hoping to pick her up. However, I didn't like her characterization in the story at all. She's supposed to be some brilliant tactical genius, but the writers totally flubbed her in practice. It was all tell, no show. Plus, the Inazuma Civil War plotline is just the absolute low point of Genshin's writing. When, at the end of Kokomi's character quest, she decided to give the soldiers who almost restarted the Civil War a promotion instead of firing them, my interest in her went to zero immediately. I no longer cared for her character and decided to skip her. I only pulled for her in her most recent rerun because she's the single best support for both Nilou and Ayaka, my two main Genshin characters. And speaking of Ayaka, I think her design is really pretty, but it's actually not my favorite. She endeared herself to me in two main ways. First, she was my first limited 5-star unit and became my main traveling companion for most of Inazuma. Seriously, I failed to get Ganyu on her first banner and used Razor as my main DPS until Ayaka released. Second, she shone brightly in several big on-screen moments. I found Ayaka to be extremely charming in her quest, and I will never forget her dance scene. The animation, the music, her character putting on a show, it all came together in a moving way. All this positive connection I have with Ayaka feeds into the experience of playing with her in the game. When I run around with her in Inazuma and hear her song, the happy memories return to me and make playing her more fun and special. And look, I know there are a lot of players who do like Kokomi or those who don't like Ayaka. These are just my opinions. We all have our own personal tastes and characters, but think about it to yourself. Do the moments where your favorite characters get to shine stick with you? Don't they enhance the experience of using them? I imagine the answer for a lot of you is yes. Unfortunately for Tingyun fans, her imposter status means that we never got to spend a single real moment with the real character. She wouldn't even know who the Trailblazer is. Instead of having happy memories with the character to feed into a positive gameplay experience, we have the painful memories of death and betrayal from Tingyun. And it's not like we can cope by looking at the voice lines where it sounds like she's talking to us. We know for a fact that we never even met her for her to speak to us. These dialogue lines are functionally not canon, which is why this line from Fu Xuan is so aggravating to me. In a continuation of the unvoiced dialogue from earlier, she says this: "But Tingyun, the Skyfaring Commission Ambassador, did exist, and so does everyone's memory of her. I hope this will make you feel better." Yeah, the memory of Tingyun exists for all of her grieving friends on the Luofu. It doesn't really exist for us, the Trailblazer and our Express crewmates, because we never even met the real Tingyun. What is there to remember of a person you never even met? Ultimately, these factors created a situation where using Tingyun in the game is not fun for me anymore. Instead, when I use Tingyun, I'm reminded of the fact that we never met her, and that we're not going to be getting any new content with her in the future. Tingyun was my main character I used on almost every team, and she was always first slot, the one I ran around in the overworld with. I lost a lot of motivation to play Star Rail as a result of this. I've mostly skipped playing Simulated Universe for the last month, and haven't even bothered attempting MOC. My day one account is a brick. All because it became sad instead of fun to use her in the game. So let's talk about our adventuring party. Part 4. Our party of imaginary friends. In Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, and some other RPGs for that matter, the adventuring party we're playing with is non-canon. The characters we're using to experience the game's events, world quests, and exploration are stand-ins for our main character. Every time we have an important interaction, the main character is swapped in to handle it. This is a little lame because, as a gacha, a big part of the appeal is spending time with and going on adventures with these characters, but it's also super easy to suspend your disbelief and feel like they are your real real adventuring party. Except Tingyun being Fantilia, and then dead, means this doesn't work anymore. For most characters, it's very easy to believe they could step aside from their day jobs and spend a little time with the Trailblazer once you meet them. And if you do their companion quests, they do come to visit you on the Express. Except Tingyun could never be in your party. Not only is she dead, but she never even met you. It's one thing to hand-wave away that a character chose to step aside from their duties to spend some time with the Trailblazer. It's another thing entirely to pretend that a dead character is actually alive to adventure with you. I struggle to get past this. I was able to run around the Luofu as Tingyun while preparing for her funeral. Talk about immersion breaking. Using her in general now actively takes me out of the experience. It feels bad. I'm reminded that she's dead, that we never even met her, that our in-game party isn't canon, and that we're not actually adventuring with any of the characters we've saved for or spent for to obtain. It became sad to use Tingyun and sad to play the game. Just like how all the happy memories of time spent with Ayaka and Genshin created a feedback loop of positive emotion that increased the joy I experienced while playing the game, Tingyun's unfortunate fate has created a feedback loop of negative emotion, killing the joy that HSR used to bring me. And that's the worst part, really. I love Genshin Impact. It is my favorite video game of all time. The constant sense of adventure and discovery with all the new friends, areas, events, and quests, it brings me indescribable amounts of joy. I even liked the unique desert areas in Sumeru, and I loved the Aranara questline. I was having so much fun that I did not care about how long it took. Honkai Star Rail brought a lot of the same joy at first. Boarding the Astral Express and hearing Take the Journey for the first time, it felt like I was being welcomed home. The space station, Bellabog, and the first part of the Luofu all delivered a lot of the same sense of adventure that I love so much with Genshin. It was bringing me a lot of joy. Sadly, the whole Tingyun plot twist really changed that. Experiencing the death of a companion is not joyful. Getting to do the worst job ever, telling a deceased person's friends and loved ones that they're gone, is not joyful. Planning and experiencing the funeral of that companion is not joyful. Ultimately, I just don't want to experience the tragic death and funeral of a companion in an otherwise fun and comedic space adventure. Maybe this sets the tone for more character death in the future, but the rapid return to comedy doesn't make me think Hoyo is going to start killing off a bunch of characters. And if they were to do that, maybe the game just isn't for me anymore. It's not the joyful experience that made me fall in love with Hoyo's games in the first place. Earlier, I said I would address those who say that Tingyun could still be alive. I realize that many of my fellow Tingyun fans are among this number. I grant that it could be possible for her to be alive. Even while having a funeral for her, they refuse to explicitly state that she is dead. If you go back to Yukong and Fushuen after the quest is completed, meaning after goodbyes and you go back to the Express, they have unvoiced dialogue lines about Tingyun. Neither of them explicitly say that she's gone, just that it's very likely that she's gone. It does kind of feel like they're not done with her story yet. People are still arguing about whether or not she's alive or dead. They haven't wrapped up her story in a satisfying way that gives players clarity, hence all the debate. But that almost makes it worse. They're dragging it out, giving the players an extremely slim hope that would ultimately make her actual death even more painful. Or they don't want to explicitly say that they killed a playable character off-screen. I just think it's incredibly unlikely that they bring her back at this point. The writing required to do so would be bizarre. How do you reasonably write a character back into the plot when you literally went through her belongings and told everybody that she died? How do you reintroduce a character that never even met you, the Trailblazer? We already had one introduction scene with the fake one. They'd have to do a new one. How does the whole funeral plotline look like anything other than filler if they actually bring her back? The odds are not in her favor. So dragging it out and giving us a false hope to keep us hooked is needless and painful. If you want to kill a character off for real, you should be explicit. Don't leave any hope. Show the body. Say they're dead. And even if they do bring her back, we'll have still had to sit through multiple patches of agonizing waiting. They can't undo how they've already made me and the rest of my Tingyun bros feel. Of course, I'd love to eat my words on this one. Feel free to prove me wrong, Hoyo.